Mahomes and Lamar Jackson just completely cornered the market on tight ends and quarterbacks. And I thought that was a pretty fun move by
Yeah, there's lots of angles you can do that too. So we're autoing here.
Yep, we're autoing both of these, and honestly, I mean, I'm okay with this. Debo isn't a guy that I'm really targeting very heavily, but if he slides, all the way to 24, I think that's a great pick there. And then Javonte Williams, I was very off on Javonte Williams early in the offseason. You remember before Melvin Gordon signed, I mean, he was getting drafted what, top 5, top 6. He was going in the mid first round. I mean, people were getting a little crazy on Javonte Williams. And then Melvin Gordon re-signed, and that should have dinged his ADP, but pushing him all the way into the third round, I feel like that's just a little bit too far. Javonte Williams is one of my favorite values now at that 2-3 turn.
I think he's just kind of one of those players that is the perfect kind of player for these kind of tournaments. Like if you're just doing a regular sit and go like 12 man league or whatever, trying to get first place out of 12 teams, like sure, maybe you don't go Williams, but like if you want to win big money, like he is the kind of player in the second, third round that you want to take every time.
And what
So
did you say last year? I mean, really, as pretty as rosters may look, what happened last year? Everybody that did well in the tournament got Jonathan Taylor, who was a second year back, going in the
yeah,
second and third round. And sure enough, I mean, Javonte Williams sure seems to fit that prototype this year. Just a guy that didn't have a huge season overall as a rookie, but showed some flashes here, showed some great efficiency. And now, and I'd say that the quarterback upgrade from Phillip Rivers to Carson Wentz was a minor upgrade, but now going from what he had to deal with last year to Russell Wilson gets a huge offensive upgrade as well. So if you're looking for this year's Jonathan Taylor, I mean, could be staring you right in the face with Javonte Williams.
yeah. There's a few of the names that I don't mind too. And I know I've talked about Najee Harris a lot too, so he's another one that always keeps coming to mind for me. Like we're so back and forth on him in the first and second round. It's the exact same thing that we were doing Taylor last year. So he's just a name that I can't stop drafting either. So, but I love the JT and Javonte Williams pairing because you get like JT's just like that rock, just keeping your roster together, and then you get Williams just like the potential, so much potential there. So that's just a fun start. And recently, I've actually been doing. I know I've been kind of talked on Twitter about it, but I've been going 3 running backs, like just hammering 3 running backs to start out, just trying to be different again, and just trying to look at the underdog scoring and kind of just lock in the volume, lock in touchdowns, lock in this half point PPR. So I just feel like the receivers drop off a lot more this year in those kind of when you hit around, 2, 3, 4, 5, like they're all the same. Like all those receivers, you can give me wide receiver 8 and it's almost the same as wide receiver, 18. So I'm just seeing a lot more kind of value in going running backs earlier this year, and I know people hate to hear that, but that's kind of where I'm at.
And some very smart people have been saying the same stuff. Dwayne McFarland over at PFF, he said that this is a year where you could really think about starting running back, and I'm with you. And you talk a lot about the different labels and names and whatnot, and wide receiver 1, tight end 1, running back 1, whatever it may be. But I kind of cracked the joke that there's like 6 wide receiver 1s and then like 30 wide receiver 2s this year. It feels like it gets really flat once you get past Stephon Diggs and Devontae Adams. And you know what? This is kind of fun. We stumbled into a little Javonte Williams and Jerry Jeudy here. Not crazy about the Jerry Jeudy pick, but hey, we are sticking with the ADP through the first 5 rounds. And I like the way that shook out. I mean, if you're hoping to auto draft early, 2 running backs, 3 wide receivers, that's not an awful start there.
That's my preferred, like 2 running backs, 3 receivers, or 3 running backs, 2 receivers. Like I don't want to sniff tight end and quarterback really, and because I can get them value later. So it's kind of how I'm starting most of my drafts anyway. So yeah, it's funny that you just auto drafted and ends up like that anyway. So
and one other thing I'll point, with these shows where we get either the first pick or the 12th pick, it's kind of fun because rather than just scrambling for who we're going to be picking every few minutes, we get to talk a little bit more game theory, and we've got a lot more time in between our picks here. So this is fun. I want to shout out too. I see Joe Metz in this draft. I see him in rooms all the time. Really, really good guy who just I forget where, but I saw he just announced that he had an opportunity with a new site somewhere. So glad to see he's doing well. But now with our next pick, I mean, we're still pretty far out. We've still got 20 picks, so we can start looking down the board a little bit here. I mean, I think it's almost a certainty that we're going to want to add Russell Wilson to this build, already having Jerry Jeudy and Javonte Williams. How early are you willing to reach for him, though? We're looking right here. His ADP is 76.7. If we take a look at the draft board, I mean, we almost might have to take him with our next picks with 72 and 73 because he's probably not coming back around to 96.
So I just look at our full roster here, and yeah, I guess Wilson's a necessity. You want him, but you also could go Trey Lance, or you also could go Matthew Stafford. So like, you don't really have to force it if you don't want. Like if there's a player on the board right here that you like a lot more, but also we're picking at the turn here, so we can do a lot of kind of fun things here depending on how it shakes out.
And, you know, as much as I like it in stacks, you know, let's say the pick comes to us and for whatever reason, Kyler Murray, Jalen Hurts are still on the board, or Joe Burrow is still on the board. You want to get that stack, but I just feel like you're giving up so much value when I've got, you know, Russell Wilson a full tier behind those guys. Like, I just, even for the sake of the stack, I'm praying that Kyler Murray and Jalen Hurts get picked before we're on the board, because I don't know if I can realistically select Russell Wilson with those two guys still being available.
Yeah, and I mentioned this also on Twitter that's been my favorite build. Kind of go 3 running backs, 2 receivers, and then the 6th round, it's Kyler or Hurts, whoever's there. I'm picking. I don't care, and I don't care about stacks. I just want one of those players. Like I'd much rather have Hurts than Russell Wilson. Like that's even if it's a Russell Wilson stack, that to me Hurts is just way better ceiling. Like I'm not going to force Russell Wilson over him just because of a stack. That's kind of my thinking.
No, I know you said you checked out the show that I did last week with Josh Larkey and Jared Smola, but we kind of had a funny moment there where I broke it down. You know, rounds 1 through 3, who are your favorite targets, and then rounds 4 through 6, who are your favorite targets. And Josh Larkey went first there, and he went on and on and on about how much he loves Jalen Hurts. And then, before Jared got to answer the question, I said, and as much as I love Jalen Hurts, for me, it's not even Jalen Hurts specifically. It's Jalen Hurts or Kyler Murray. Whoever slides to me is who I'm happy with. And then Jared went right into the guy he wanted to talk about, which was Kyler Murray. So it's kind of strange because it sounds like people have been shouting from the rooftops for months now that Jalen Hurts and Kyler Murray are both wildly undervalued. And here they still are, consistently sliding into the end of the 6th, early 7th round. And we might have an opportunity for Jalen Hurts here. I mean, here we are, pick 68 on the board, and Hurts is still available.
Well, it's almost like a luxury pick, right? It's like not something you need, especially when you have JT and you have Javonte and Debo. Like you have like solid core set of players right there, and you don't really need Hurts for this build. But like if you want to win big money, I think it's worth it.
So here's kind of what I'm thinking, how I'd like to play this out. Just looking ahead a little bit, we're still 3 picks out. I think, well, there goes Jalen Hurts. So that is not going to happen, because what I was saying is if Jalen Hurts and Devonta Smith were both available, I would completely forget about Russell Wilson, and I would just draft that standalone stack at the turn. But Jalen Hurts is gone now. Russell Wilson and Joe Burrow, I've got them in the same tier. I'm okay taking Russ ahead of Burrow for the stack. Hurts and Kyler were a tier ahead, where I don't think I'd be able to do that. Who are some other guys that jump out to you here? Adam Thielen, I know we've both been drafting him a ton. I like Elijah Moore. I love Devonta Smith. DeAndre Hopkins, I think, is great for these tournament settings where you're really hoping for the points at the end here. I think we're going to take Russell Wilson for sure.
I see, like right here, like, yeah, I get, that's fine, Russell Wilson, but I would almost rather go Elijah Moore and Devonte Smith. So, and I know it's probably not the right decision because you're supposed to stick with those stacks, right? So,
I think getting Javonte and Jeudy both under ADP, I'm okay paying up a couple spots early for Russell Wilson. And frankly, Russell Wilson isn't a guy that I'm really targeting heavily unless I get the stacks. And I don't often. So that's just a little bit different for me. This isn't a build that I've gone out with too often. Between Elijah Moore and Devonta Smith, though, do you have a firm flag plant, one or the other here?
I usually go Elijah Moore just because I have Devonte Smith as my highest owned. But like if I was just equal ownership, I'd go Smith over him.
Yeah, and that's the way that you got to think about it too. I mean, in a vacuum, I am with you. I prefer Devonta Smith well ahead of Elijah Moore, but sometimes you got to play ADP a little bit. Let me see. I've got another
Well,
open
and
right now.
another reason to go there is you didn't land on Hertz, so we have potential to get Zach Wilson later. So you still keep that in play as well. So I always kind of think about like my roster and how it's going to shake out down the line as well. So to me, it just makes sense when you have two receivers pretty much the same projection. Let's go with one that we can still kind of stack with a quarterback, maybe.
I like it. Yeah, I'm looking at my exposure right now. Elijah Moore, I'm at 5.3% on, which is slightly below average where you want to be if you're trying to, spread yourself thinly. Devonta Smith is number 3 for me at 23.8%.
Mm-hmm.
And then Allen Robinson is number 2 for me. So I've already got Allen Robinson on this build. So I've got a lot of builds already that have Devonta Smith and Allen Robinson. So I like that we switch that up a little bit.
Yeah, and the reason I was a little bit not like jumping on Russell Wilson there is I'm kind of I don't know if he's going to be like this top 10 quarterback, to be honest. And maybe that's a really bad hot take. So like, I don't really put him up in that tier with the like Burrow tier. Like I don't know. I have him more with like Brady and more with Stafford. Like, I think he's more in that range to me, just like the older veteran. That's not going to, he's not going to be needed to score 5 touchdowns every game. So
Right.
that's kind of how I see him.
And honestly, I'm underweight on Russell Wilson as well for that exact reason. People still have this idea that he fits in the Konami quarterback mold, and it just frankly isn't true. I mean, he just hasn't been rushing the last few years. So, really what you're banking on with Russell Wilson at this point in his career, and luckily he's provided it for the last few seasons, is insane efficiency. Because when he was in Seattle, he was still putting up QB1 numbers, but he wasn't doing it with a lot of rushing, and he wasn't doing it on a lot of pass attempts either. So now with Hackett, maybe they get him throwing a little bit more, but I still think that this is going to be a run first team. They brought Melvin Gordon back. They've got Javonte Williams. This team is going to run a lot. I think the one thing that I'd argue, though, is with so many playmakers there. I mean, we always talk about Cortland Sutton. We got Jerry Jeudy on the squad already. Getting reports of Tim Patrick. Albert Okwuegbunam was everybody's favorite sleeper tight end. And now we've got reports that their rookie, Greg Dulcich, is going to overtake Albert O for the starting tight end. I mean, they just have an embarrassment of riches in Denver that when you've got somebody like Russell Wilson, who's a little bit younger than I think people still, what is he, 32, 33 years old? He's not, on the upper 30s like a lot of the other veterans that he gets lumped in with. He could certainly have a career year this year just because of the weapons that are around him.
No, yeah, I think he's still a fun player, and he still definitely has all the weapons there. But it's just a personal preference. I just view him more as Matthew Stafford range. Like, if I got Matthew Stafford over Russell Wilson, I'm fine with that.
Yeah, and so. It does seem like, again, we talk about this often, but quarterbacks in good offenses get pushed up best ball boards because of the stats. Mm-hmm. And realistically, I prefer a lot of the quarterbacks we just talked about in a vacuum, but we reached 5 spots ahead of ADP for Russ because of the stack. So we're playing right into it. Who are some guys here that jump out to you? I mean, we could definitely add another running back. Jonathan Taylor and Javonte Williams are a heck of a one-two punch.
I like Penny and Singletary. I like Olave. They'll be my top 3 here. I mean, if you wanted to go Goddard, but I don't think that you need to force the tight end right here.
I think we're a little bit early on Goddard still. I will pass on him. Taking Penny for sure, especially with the reports that he's going to be getting 20 touches. Really, I like any of these guys. Chris Olave, Kareem Hunt, Devin Singletary.
I would go Olave probably just for that late season upside.
I like it. And
it could be early season, right?
Yeah, seriously. I mean, I don't know. Did you see that clip come out of Michael Thomas a couple weeks ago? There's good reports coming out. Nick Underhill with the Saints just came out and said that, he's been hearing nothing but good things about Michael Thomas, but man, they came out with this video of him running routes and, no pads on, no helmet, just running routes. And he looks slow and clunky, and he was struggling to do anything outside of a straight line. I mean, I'm not trying to overreact too much to a quick few second video, but Michael Thomas does not look like the Michael Thomas that we saw a few years ago.
Yeah, he's just a major avoid for me, and he's just going to be all year. Like, even if there's positive reports, maybe if we see him in the preseason and he actually runs, maybe then I'll change my mind. But yeah, I'm not going to draft him.
Yeah, and that's exactly what I need to see. Is I'm probably not touching him at ADP unless he slides, a few rounds. I'm talking slides 4 or 5 rounds lower than he should, or if we can see him balling out in preseason. But I wouldn't expect either of those to happen. So in between this time, we can take a look at some of the other teams here and see what some other people are doing.
4 running back starter. Look at that. That's fun.
Yeah, that's what and I mean, Larry Bird, I assume that he's not touching running backs for the rest of the draft. And you got Michael Thomas here, but man, that's rough. I don't see people go 0 wide receiver often in best ball drafts. Here we got pick 84 was the first wide receiver.
Yeah, that's Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, you're really swinging for upside with that one, but man, look at that. Najee Harris, DeAndre Swift, Travis Etienne, Breece Hall. So that was a question I had. JJ Zachariason, he always asks for questions for his mailbag show, and that was a question that I asked him today: is how are you changing up your draft strategy? Because running backs, it seems like there's just they're spread throughout the first 4 rounds now, rather than needing to get 2 running backs in your first 2 picks. You can see what this guy did, getting Travis Etienne and Breece Hall in rounds 3 and 4. But you could start wide receiver, get yourself 2 stud wide receivers, and then still have a very strong running back anchored by Travis Etienne and Breece Hall. And I'm just wondering how much that kind of changes up the calculus for drafters a little bit this year. I'm sure once we get into redraft season, we'll start to see running backs creeping up the board a little bit. But right now, you can get a starting running back that's going to see 250, 300 touches in the 3rd or 4th round, which is kind of wild.
Yeah, and I think like you said right there, maybe you try both kind of builds. Like you don't have to just lock yourself into one. And I kind of like I worry a lot of people do that. They're just locking themselves into just like 1 or 2 certain builds, and that's how they're going to play every single draft they do. And I don't think that's the right way to do it. Even if you feel like you have every edge, like it's so new, so different, and data's going to change this year. So I don't know. I don't know really where to go with that one.
Yeah, I'm at the point now, and I'm sure you're in the same boat. I am just so ready for football to start. We're just a few weeks away from preseason football kicking off. Less than 2 months out from the NFL season, but I feel like I have exhausted every single player take at this point. Like there isn't a player that I haven't talked about one way or another. With the ADPs changing all the time, I'm finding myself having to be a little bit more fluid with my takes. But man, I'm just ready to watch some football on a Sunday. I can tell you that.
Yeah, I'm just. The next month's going to be like the hard month, right? For best, it always is for me because injuries start to happen, and you're so heavy volume drafter that you're always just like running to your spreadsheets to check your exposures and different things like that. So last year like crushed me, and then you just kind of draft and move on, some more, move on. So. I'm excited, but also you kind of have that like, ooh, I have a lot invested in a lot of these players. So
yep, and I've mentioned it on the show, I'm sure, but I'm just much more conservative with my drafting this year because last year I was all in on Chris Carson, 3rd round, 40-something%, and when he went down, that's tough to come back from. So we've got a few guys. Just a reminder, we got Russell Wilson, Jonathan Taylor, Javonte Williams, Rashad Penny, Deebo Samuel, Jerry Jeudy, Allen Robinson, Elijah Moore, and Chris Olave. So we're pretty balanced at running back and receiver, at least from value, with a little bit more volume on the receiver side. We've already got a quarterback, no tight ends so far. Do we want to keep adding some receivers here? Because I like both of these guys for ceiling, Rondale Moore and Kenny Galladay. I'm pretty happy with either of them.
Yeah, I would go one of those guys. I kind of like Galladay a little bit better, but that's just personal.
And I'll switch up on here because normally when looking at those two, I'm taking Rondale. So let's throw a little Galladay into this one. And then we've taken Justin Fields as a QB2 quite a bit. We've talked a little bit about Irv Smith.
I mean, you could go Fields and commit, and just then you get your stack hit.
I was thinking about it, but it came a little bit too late. I mean, that's one of my favorite moves is at the 10-11 turn is stacking those two. Rashad White's a guy that I've been warming up to a little bit lately. I usually take Madison here, but my exposure on Madison's currently at like 30%. Do you want to add Rashad White? I mean, I think that where he's getting drafted is a high upside guy. Yeah.
Yep, I think that's great for this.
And I think what happened is I changed my focus on Rashad White a little bit. For the longest time, I couldn't stand where Rashad White was getting drafted in dynasty leagues. I felt like he was just getting overvalued. And then, I heard some people saying that Rashad White was going to take away all of Leonard Fournette's passing upside. And I didn't like that because I think that Leonard Fournette is locked into his 3-down role. But now that I've kind of changed the way that I look at Rashad White, I find myself drafting him a little bit more. I'm not drafting him for any standalone value. I'm looking at him as the same way that I'm looking at Alexander Madison. He's
Right.
either getting you absolutely nothing, or in the case of an injury to Leonard Fournette, who has missed a game every single season he's been in the league, you're looking at a guy who's probably going to get plugged in and see 15 to 20 touches on an explosive offense. So now that I've reshaped the way that I'm looking at Rashad White, I find myself drafting him a little bit more.
I think that's important to do that on a lot of players, because we just kind of, there's been players I just avoid, and then all of a sudden I'll read some stuff and kind of think about it more in my own head, and like, why am I avoiding this? This is a good play. So then you sprinkle them back in. So yeah, I think that's a great way to look at it, especially when you have the top player in the whole NFL, then you got Williams and Penny. Like, you have 3 starting running backs. Like, he's the kind of 4th running back that you want on this kind of build to kind of give you that later season kind of leverage. So yeah, I like that for this build especially.
I feel like we've ended up with Penny on a few teams already.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, that's one where I just can't really wrap my mind around his ADP. I mean, this guy was the best running back in fantasy football to close out the NFL season, and people are just so scorned by 3.5 years of injuries that they are just completely writing off what he did. And it almost goes against the logic that you typically see from fantasy football managers, where they have very short memories, and it's very much so, recency bias affecting the decisions that they make. And then here we have Rashad Penny, who, as recent as possible, went on a tear at the end of the year, and now nobody wants anything to do with him. The one other thing I'll say is, we've seen how Pete Carroll operates. We had Chris Carson, who was a 5th-round running back. They drafted Rashad Penny in the 1st round that year, and it was still Chris Carson's job week 1 going into that next season. So now with Rashad Penny getting brought back on a contract after his rookie deal, people are concerned that Ken Walker is going to come in there and just suddenly be the guy. I just don't think Pete Carroll's going to do that. I think that Pete Carroll feels some sort of I don't know if it's trust or respect, what it is, but I think that it's going to be Rashad Penny's job as long as he's healthy.
You're starting to see, like, the reports are coming out that Penny, it is his job, right? And that Walker's kind of fallen down. Like, that's the last week's report, and we've seen that on just going over the best ball report that I do. Like, Penny was actually one of the risers. He was top 7 riser. Like, he went up a half a round, and then you had Walker as the 2nd highest faller. Like, he's down 7.2 picks. So that's starting to happen. So I wouldn't be surprised if Penny, he's going to get where kind of Miles Sanders is right now at ADP. So you're going to see that.
He should be. Yeah.
You're going to see that in the next 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah. And it's kind of wild how one report could just swing a player's ADP so much. Speaking of, I'm actually interested to see where, hopefully this is a sharp draft room, but I want to see where Leonard Fournette went here. All right, so Leonard Fournette didn't slide in this draft, but you saw the reports about him weighing in at 260 pounds. I'm hoping that I can use this, these next few days as an opportunity to buy low on Leonard Fournette, because his ADP has been creeping up. But Big H here, he's not buying the story at all. I'm pretty sure that's ahead of ADP for Fournette at pick 20. So I'd like to see some people sticking to their priors. We almost took Komet with the last pick, and he might slide all the way down to us at 144 here. We've also got this Albert Okwuegbunam, who we talked about. He'd certainly fit in with the heavy Denver stack that we have, but I have not been on Albert O at all this offseason. I just haven't been buying into the hype. And then we get the reports today that Greg Dulcich is probably going to be the starting tight end over him. I mean, right here, we could look at some running backs, but we'd be dipping pretty far down the board, but you kind of have to when you're picking at the turn here. Some of the other upside guys that we could swing for, I like Tyrion Davis-Price. We've talked about him a bunch. Kenneth Gainwell, Khalil Herbert, I like them. But we've also got some really good wide receivers here.
It's Josh Palmer's and Van Jefferson. Like, those guys, like, guys I'm taking here.
Yeah, I like Josh Palmer here for sure. Jamison Crowder is my guy. I've been beating the drum for him for a while. If I get a chance to get Jamison Crowder under ADP, I can't really pass on it. So I like these 2 receivers here. Jamison Crowder is more of the floor guy. Josh Palmer is a little bit more of a ceiling guy. Again, though, we try not to read too much into offseason camp reports, but did you see just a few days ago out of Buffalo, they said that Jamison Crowder is now getting the first team reps and that he is outplaying Isaiah McKenzie, and that he is projected to be the slot receiver in Buffalo. That slot receiver role has generated 100 plus targets for 3 consecutive seasons with Cole Beasley. So if you got Jamison Crowder, who is younger, bigger, more athletic, just an all-around better football player than Cole Beasley, stepping into the same role that Cole Beasley consistently put out top 30 seasons, and you're able to get him as wide receiver 60 off the board, I feel like Jamison Crowder is just a smash where he's getting drafted.
I always see those reports getting flip-flop, though. Like some weeks, and then it'll go back to McKenzie's kind of the guy, or could be the guy, like after a couple of weeks. So, I mean, Crowder, he's had a quiet, pretty solid career. And then you throw him on like the best passing offense, maybe in the whole entire league, in that slot role that we've seen Cole Beasley do some work in, right? So, like, I get like why you want to tell that story about Crowder, and I think this is an eight wide receiver build that we just did. So, like, your 7th, 8th receiver here, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, and I think we're pretty good on receivers.
Yeah, we probably could have stopped at 7 there, to be honest.
Probably, but I don't have a ton of faith in Jerry Jeudy. I don't even have a ton of faith in Debo, honestly. I mean, those are both auto picks. I'm not feeling especially great about either of those guys. So, I think that you can get a lot of value. When I just, a lot of people like saving their 17th and 18th round pick for the high upside swings at wide receiver. I'm almost always taking running backs at that pick. There's just so much more upside there. I like locking in my wide receivers early. We probably could have gone with 7 here, but that's a heck of a wide receiver core. Debo, Jerry Jeudy, Allen Robinson, Elijah Moore, Chris Olave, Kenny Galladay, Jamison Crowder, Josh Palmer. We got some solid floor guys. We've got some upside built in there. I like that. So we still have 5 picks left. We don't have a tight end yet. We still need a QB2, and then we'll probably sprinkle in another running back here. But let me ask you one other thing. And, it's we've talked about it a few times, and it's something that nobody likes talking about. But I'm sure you saw the new reports today that Desean Watson, coming out from Mike Florio, saying that it's going to be somewhere between a 2 and an 8 game suspension. So is Desean Watson on your radar now? Is he somebody you're drafting? Are you drafting him at ADP? Does he have to slide, or is he completely off your board?
I mean, I feel like he missed like all last year, and I just don't see that he's going to miss the whole second year. So I don't know. I don't know. And you get Russell Wilson by week 9. I mean, if you go Watson, when's his bye? The same, right? 9. Yeah, I think it's the same 9. So you would miss. It's like he wouldn't be back if he got an 8 game until week 10.
Yeah, week 9. Yeah, and that's the thing. Even if so you'd be without a quarterback for 1 week, and that's something where I try to do a lot. Get the guys if I'm drafting Watson as my QB2. Try to get a guy with a week 13, week 14 buy or something like that. But for me,
so he's probably not going to work on this build,
right? Unless of course. He slips into the 18 and want to add a QB3 instead of a running back 5, but I don't know if that's the route that we're going to go. I mean, realistically, I'm probably I'm okay waiting until 17 or 18 and just taking whatever quarterback is left. But tight ends are going to be thinning out quickly here. So let's see what tight ends we got available with this next pick coming up. We are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 picks out. We get 7 here. I mean, I like Njoku, Ingram, Hurst. Is Higbee a guy that's on your radar? I don't know why. Higbee, sell me on him if you're on Higbee, because I want nothing to do with him at cost this year.
Oh, I think this around 14, 15 pick for Higbee is worth it. Just the offense, just the offense, basically. That's all I'd sell you on the Rams offense. Like, sure, like, Robinson. Yeah. So I think he's
Robinson to remind him a bit.
I think he's more of, you want to piece him together with 2 other tight ends, right? And he could, you want him to be standing at the end of the season still and still giving you some points. So I would go Njoku here.
Yeah, Njoku for sure. I mean, I'm okay taking 2 tight ends here, honestly.
Yeah.
None of the running backs here really jump out to me. I do like James Robinson in tournaments. If he is able to come back and produce at the end of the season, he could be a nice addition. But none of these guys are making it back to us. I like
Yeah.
Evan Ingram out of the bunch. Are you cool with taking Evan Ingram here out
Yep.
of these?
Yeah, that's fine by me.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked about it a ton. I just think, being in Doug Peterson offense, there's just going to be so much opportunity for him to get a bunch of passes there. So we got 3 picks left, and we're going to need a quarterback here, and then we'll probably be saving that last pick for whatever running back is left. Let me keep these guys on just in case one of them happens to slip. With us really punting tight end down the board, we can go for a 3 tight end build if Higbee slides all the way to us. Doubtful, but something to keep an eye on.
Yeah, I think you could also do 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, and you just stick with the 4 running backs. And I'm not usually a 4 running back person, but
with Jonathan Taylor and Javonte, and then yeah, this is one way where we could do a 4 running back build, certainly. And we got so I don't know if you saw that or not, but immediately after we picked, just a couple picks after, Desean Watson, so he's starting to creep up. That was at 15-3. That's one of the earliest I've seen him go so far. I'd love Zach Wilson here because we got Elijah Moore. I don't think we have any Titans. Not that it really matters all that much. We don't have any Lions. We don't have any Panthers either. So pretty much any of these quarterbacks that we're going to be taking at the end of this draft here are just going to be naked on their own.
Well, I think Tannehill's not a bad option because people forget like how much he can actually run. So like you don't have to have a stack with him.
Yeah. And I pointed that out pretty recently. Like people have written Ryan Tannehill off for dead. I mean, nobody is talking about Ryan Tannehill anymore. Here he is getting drafted at QB 25. He finished as QB 14 last year. And that was with A.J. Brown missing half the season. That was with Derrick Henry missing half the season. Julio Jones hardly playing at all. I mean, he went out there and finished as a top 14 quarterback with Nick Westbrook-Akine being his main target for the majority of the game, having Deonta Foreman and Dontrell Hilliard coming out of the backfield. And I know that, they didn't beef up too much and they lost A.J. Brown, but now with Treylon Burks and Robert Woods and Derrick Henry back healthy again, it kind of seems like the floor for Ryan Tannehill is top 15, and you're drafting him in one of the final rounds of your draft as a QB 25. I can't really understand why his value has been pushed down the way that it has. Well, there he goes, way above consensus to a scoundrel who might be watching this show.
No, actually, I talked about that before as well. Like you can go with the Titans stack. You could take Tannehill 16th round, and then you go, or Austin Hooper. You try to get one of those, and you try to get the other one in the 17th round, and then you go Westbrook-Akine in the 18th round, and you have like a nice three stack there that cost you no money.
Yep. Or even Son Haskins, throw him in with that 18th round pick. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that you can go with it. I know we've talked about it a ton. We did it on our first show ever with the Davis Mills, Nico Collins, Brevin Jordan at the 16, 17, 18. That's always a fun, cheap stack to get as well. Here, I'll be interested to see.
Nico is like a 13th, 14th round pick now. That guy.
Yeah, and did you see our friend Matt Harmon? He tweeted out his reception perception chart yesterday, and it was just green arrows in every direction. And Matt Harmon singing his praises that he's going to have a year 2 breakout. So hope you enjoyed getting Nico in the 18th round when you could, because I don't think that's going to be happening anymore.
Yeah, we were ahead of our time there.
Yeah, I was in my SFB draft. Nico Collins was a guy that I did not want to leave my draft without. He got picked in like the 12th round. I couldn't believe it. I was like, are you kidding me? Like I was ready to take him, a few rounds early, and he went, almost 10 rounds ahead of ADP. People are really starting to turn on to Nico Collins recently. Man, I'm really hoping we get Zach Wilson here, but
you just jinxed it.
I know. Oh, I know I did.
There you go. There you got him.
Now, out of the rest of these guys, I like Baker. I do. I like Davis Mills as well. Do you have any strong opinions on these 4 remaining? Baker Mayfield, Davis Mills, Jared Goff, Carson Wentz. Do you have a really strong opinion on any of them?
I think they're all kind of the same. They're all priced about right, and they all should just, if you mix and match them, unless you have the stacks for them, that's probably why you're taking them. But probably Baker, yes, above them, just because of that team he's on.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. And it seems like his ADP should have crept up a bit by now. I mean, that trade to the Panthers was almost 3 weeks ago, and it just hasn't really budged yet. He's still getting drafted down here. I think that he deserves to be a few picks higher.
And here's a fun one, too. I know we could go a 3rd tight end, too, if you wanted, right? But you could do, Tremble.
I know. I was thinking about that. Tommy Tremble.
No one wants him. And he would be, if you get into the playoffs and just say he's healthy, Baker's healthy, maybe you're the 2% of teams have that combo, like it's going to be very rare.
Well, see, I don't see people using this feature often where you can type in the team names here, but we can take a look. Greg Dulcich, he's been getting some
There you go.
hype out of camp right now. That could be our third tight end that we can pair back up with him. This cracks me up. I see it all the time, man. Travis Fulgham in Denver. I keep forgetting that he's there. We've also got the Jets. So CJ Zuma, Tyler Conklin, Braxton Berrios, so some guys we'd slide. Not really too crazy about any of them. And then the Panthers. I was hoping Deonta Foreman was going to slide into the 18th and we could tack him on as our final running back, but he went the pick immediately after Baker. Terrace Marshall, Chuba, Rashard Higgins.
Chuba's not like Chuba's just forgotten. People hate him. I get it, but
he sucks, man.
Yeah,
he was so bad last year that they had to bring in Amir Abdullah off the street to give somebody passing work. I really struggled to buy into Chuba, but Rashard Higgins, man,
this has a spot in my heart. He's Canadian, that's why I just can't let him go.
Is he? So. I didn't realize that. I was just looking at his splits though the other day, with and without Baker Mayfield, and it's almost a perfect 50-50 split down the middle. It was like 30 games with Baker, 40 something without him. But he averaged over twice as many points with Baker Mayfield as his quarterback than he has with any other quarterback. And you remember it. I mean, it was Rashard Higgins. Remember that Baker Mayfield touchdown celebration where he comes sliding in on one knee and he's taking the pictures? That was after a touchdown to Rashard Higgins. So he's a guy, and we're not drafting another wide receiver here because we've already got 8. But Rashard Higgins is a guy that I don't mind as a round 18 pick if I've got Baker.
Yeah, I still wish, like, I love when Underdog was doing 20 rounds there earlier in the summer and earlier in the off season. So 20 rounds is so fun. And that's like for me and you and all these other drafters, like there's so many guys that we would still draft, that are left on the board. And I get that's kind of the game theory of it, right? So you kind of have to make those hard decisions at the end, but it's kind of fun to take shots on those late round guys.
Jeff Bell and I, we kind of cracked a joke about that earlier today because I've seen a few people tweeting now that SFB drafts are in full effect. A lot of people are cracking jokes. I'm in round 20 and I don't even know any of these players' names, or I'm in round 22. Who am I supposed to pick? And Jeff and I are saying, man, when I'm staring at my 22nd pick, I've got 15 guys in my queue, and I'm like, I don't know who I want. I want them all.
I mean, are you going to look at running back here at all?
Yeah, I mean, I've got all these guys queued up would work with the quarterbacks that we have as far as stacks go. Zamir White, though, Sony Michel is a guy that I've been drafting a ton of. I just see him slotting in as the goal line back in Miami, a team that's going to run the ball a ton. So I like Sony Michel. I like Hassan Haskins. I mean, I like all these guys, and I've got pretty steady exposure on just about all these guys. I try to mix it up. Who jumps out to you out of this bunch, though? Tyler Batty is another guy that I've been drafting a little bit more, and he's starting to creep up now where he was going undrafted all the time, but now with the reports that J.K. Dobbins might not be ready for week 1, Gus Edwards might not be ready either. Tyler Batty, he could be the week 1 starter in Baltimore.
Yeah, I don't feel good about any of them. That's probably why I would just be like, hey, let's just go 4 running backs. And that would be my deciding factor.
Yeah.
But I just don't think any of these guys are going to help you. So
yeah, no, I'm with you. I'm going to take the wide receivers out because we are set at wide receiver.
Like Terrace Marshall is one guy where I feel like he's going to be the Nico Collins. You're going to see him like skyrocket into like 14th round here before kickoff.
Oh, God. He's another guy that just didn't get me excited. Let's go with Dulcich. Let's just be prisoners to the news cycle. We got a report from Mike Kliss today that he's looking like the tight end 1.
So then you got Baker's. You got him naked, nobody with him too. So that doesn't really matter.
That's true. I forgot that we had a naked Baker. So let's go Tommy Tremble.
No, I wasn't trying to force you into that.
No. I like it. All right. I've already got Dulcich on a few rosters. Tommy Tremble, I like that. That's the first time I got exposure to him. That makes for a fun team. Let's go ahead and pull this one up and take a look at it before we wrap this show up here. Oh,
I feel like you made that team too pretty for the wide receivers, so I had to make it like take Tommy Tremble just so people can get crap on when you post this roster. So they would have loved it if you wouldn't have added him, I bet.
I think this is a fun team overall. I like this. This is back-to-back weeks, James, where we've drafted teams that I like. And it's weird. Again, 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, but I wouldn't expect any differently from us. We've got 6 quarterbacks and tight ends and 4 running backs, but kind of works. We got the Russell Wilson, the really heavy stack where we got Russell Wilson, Javonte Williams, and Jerry Jeudy. With Zach Wilson, we were able to tack on Elijah Moore, and that's it for him. And then with Baker, we've got Baker and Tommy Tremble. But really, I mean, we talked about the wide receivers quite a bit. That's just a great wide receiver bunch from top to bottom. The tight ends are, we waited on tight ends, but we've got some upside guys there. And then the running backs, I mean, the way I look at it, if Javonte Williams or Jonathan Taylor gets hurt, this team was done anyway. So why not just pretend like they are going to stay healthy for the entire season and rely on them? That's what you got to do, man. You're swinging for pure upside in these tournaments.
No, I agree, and we looked at those running backs at the end, and it's just like there was nothing that was going to help you, so it wasn't worth it. Like,
yeah.
It was so bad we took Tommy Tremble over all the remaining running backs. That's how bad it was.
Yeah, and it gets tough as we get closer, and drafters are getting a little bit sharper. I mean, sometimes just for fun, I'll go back and I look at my old teams, the teams that I drafted in March and April, and just get so excited seeing Leonard Fournette in the 5th round and Tom Brady in round 14 and Alan Lazard in round 18. But those days are behind us. Drafters are getting sharp. Nico Collins, you're not getting him in the 18th round anymore. Now you're spending that 18th round pick on Tommy Tremble.
Yeah. And yeah, I mean, you can look at all those old teams and they are fun, but you're not telling me about all the bad picks you did in there too. So
there are plenty. Yeah, and then that's the same thing. I'll be like, I drafted this guy in round 13, and now he's not even getting drafted in Underdog anymore. So yeah, it does go both ways. Absolutely.
Yeah, I was a big Tyler Johnson Tampa Bay fan there for early February.
Yeah, I thought I was really sharp in March when I would stack Tom Brady with Cyril Grayson, and realistically, probably not doing much of anything at all. Mike Thomas was another one of my picks in the early offseason. Mike Thomas was going in the 5th and 6th round. For some reason, I just had it in my head that Mike Thomas was going to come back and he was going to be dominant again. I had like 35% exposure on Michael Thomas at one point in the early offseason. So you win some and you lose some, but it definitely makes for fun. This was by far the fastest draft that we've done so far. We started this draft 5 minutes into the show and wrapped it up at the 45-minute mark. So props to everybody that was in this draft for cruising right through it. But James, before we sign off, any parting words for the audience?
Yeah, just on that build right there. I know we went 3 quarterbacks, 3 tight ends, and maybe that doesn't seem optimal to kind of take down a tournament. But I also think there's some value in building more balanced kind of teams at all positions. I know I'll give a shout out to Hayden Winks. I listened to his podcast on Friday. If you haven't listened to that, go listen to it. It's really, really well done. And just kind of how he lays out each position and kind of what correlates and whatnot. And it was more like, let's have more a balanced kind of build, and people aren't doing that as much. So it just got me thinking, got me drafting a little different recently. So yeah, shout out to him.
I'll be sure to check that out for sure. And that's something that I don't know, I've kind of been doing naturally a little bit this year. Is people love having their builds where, I'm going robust running back or I'm going zero running back. And, it seems like running backs are kind of, like we said, throughout like the first 4 rounds, you can get solid running backs everywhere. So there's no reason to go zero running back, no reason to go zero wide receiver. You can get value at just about every position in those early rounds. So why not balance your roster out a little bit? I'm going to have to check out that pod. It sounds like it might be confirming some of my priors. So I always like listening to information that makes me feel like I was doing the right thing all along.
Yeah, well, and I know you've even helped me in the last few weeks too, just like how gung-ho you are on like the 3 tight ends, and that's something he talked about too, and kind of confirmed that. So it's kind of nice to hear it from a few people, and then it's kind of nice to do some drafts yourself and to kind of figure it out yourself. So yeah, I love the best ball community, and I'm always reading and watching everything out there. So I'm not just locking into my own habits and my own line of thinking. So yeah, appreciate everybody out there.
Yeah. And again, if you're looking for some content to check out, I got to plug my show, recorded and released last Friday with Josh Larkey and Jared Smola. All we talked about was best ball. The first half of the show was all about best ball strategy. Second half was all about different player takes and guys that we're targeting. So Josh, Jared, 2 very smart guys that are doing best ball. So definitely check that out if you're looking for something as well. YouTube.com/footballguys. And finally, before we sign off, if If you haven't already signed up for Underdog, you can do that today. If you use promo code Footballguys, you will get a 100% deposit match on your initial deposit up to $100. So be sure to do that today, underdogfantasy.com, or you can download it in the App Store. Underdog Fantasy and promo code Footballguys will get you a 100% deposit match. Thank you so much for tuning in. We'll see you next week.